WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station.
Welcome back to the main event on WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. Chase Sr. here with you. Now, the talk of the town is the Eagles' debacle in Mile High yesterday afternoon, but the city of brotherly love adores its hoops, and Sixers training camp got underway this past Saturday at St. Joseph's University. So let's welcome in Keith Pompey, who covers the Philadelphia 76ers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Keith, it's Chase Sr. on the main event. How are you? I'm doing fantastic, and congratulations on the new beat with the Sixers after doing a really good job with Temple the last couple of seasons. How are you enjoying the pro side of things?
Oh, man, I enjoy it. I also miss Temple a little bit. I have to be honest about that. But, yeah, I mean, the goal is to get promoted, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Now, thanks for spending a couple of minutes with us. It took the organization a couple of months to find a head coach, which sort of drove this city crazy, but they finally found their man and hired Brett Brown to become the 24th head coach in the history of the franchise. Now, Brown hails from the Greg Popovich coaching tree, so he's been under the tutelage of one of the best to ever do it. He's very big on fitness and playing at an up-tempo pace, but what have been your impressions with the first-year head man?
I really like Brett Brown. I mean, my impressions of him are he's the right guy for what they want to do. I mean, if you know the history and Brett Brown's background, you know, he was a player development coach. I mean, he's a coach's son. And then we also talk about Pop, but you got to also credit a guy, Lindsey Gaze, who's like an international legend. So Brett Brown, what he brings to the Sixers is, for a young team right now, he's going to be able to coach these guys up, make them better jump shooters. You know, he's just, I like him a lot. And not only that, you know, we talk about him being in San Antonio, but people forget or they don't know that he was Australia's Olympics team.
Right.
He also coached in Australia in, like, pro leagues for years. So, I mean, he's a quiet guy. I mean, he's probably like one of the country's America's best kept secrets, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, he talks a lot about this training regimen that he found in Australia. He's very big on fitness and getting guys to be in the best shape possible. What do you know about this training regimen that he learned from Australia and is taking over to the United States and implementing it with the Sixers right now?
Well, it's kind of hard to comment on that just because when we get into practice, you see him stretch.
Right.
You really don't see him doing things like that. But, you know, it's one of these things where they want to monitor your heart rate, so to speak.
Okay.
And it's similar to what John Calipari does at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what they do is they want these guys to get up to maximum amount of energy. Also, you know, they want to, you know what it is? It's like what Chip Kelly is doing.
That's exactly what I think of when I heard it.
Basketball, exactly. It's the same thing, but they're just implementing it for basketball. And again, it's like the offense that they're going to run, they're going to have to be in shape. I mean, he wants to get them up and down, up and down. He's going to play a lot of guys. So, you know, you can't be overweight thinking you're going to fit into this system.
Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer joins us on the main event on WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. Chase Sr. here with you. And Keith, the Sixers surprised a lot of people with their moves in the draft this past April. They traded the face of the franchise in Drew Holiday and drafted Nerlens Noel and Michael Carter-Williams within the first 11 picks. How impressed and surprised were you with the bold moves that the Sixers made on draft night?
You know what? I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you know, with Hinkie coming from Houston, you kind of knew that he was going to make a move. And Sam Hinkie, I'm talking about the general manager, because Houston always makes moves.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, when we were in Chicago at the pre-draft camp, Hinkie said it's not about who the best player is right now on a team. It's who can be the best player in 5 years.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't really want to. I listened, but it went in one ear and out the other. So when the trade came down, you're like, wow, you know, here's a guy in Nerlens Noel who they picked up, who's injured right now, but in 5 years, some people think he could be an NBA All-Star.
Mm-hmm.
He's that good of a defender. Now, the thing about Drew Holiday, I shouldn't say this in Philadelphia, but, Drew Holiday is a good point guard.
He's not great, though.
But exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
When you think of Chris Paul and him, he's not in that category.
Mm-hmm.
So, but since he's an all-star, he had great trade value. So I like the trade. I really do.
Yeah, in my opinion, Drew Holiday is a really, really talented point guard, but he's not a guy that's going to get you above a 7th or 8th seed in the East, and by drafting a couple of these young studs, that can help them, the Sixers, do that in a couple of years. But sticking with the rookies, MCW, Michael Carter-Williams, showed flashes of what he can bring to the table as a point guard. He's more of a pass-first guy, very athletic. He's got that long body. He struggles to shoot a little bit from the outside and tends to force the issue with his passing game. You got to see him firsthand when Temple upset Syracuse at Madison Square Garden last December. But what can we expect to see from Michael Carter-Williams in year one and moving forward?
I think he's going to struggle a little bit in year one. I think he has to find his shot. Everything's going to be new to him. Like whereas Nerlens Noel can be able to sit from the bench and watch, they're throwing MCW right out there. And he's going to find out that those, like you said, those passes. If you do it like a little bit a step too slow, someone's taking it back the other way for a breakaway dunk.
Yeah.
He needs to, right now his weaknesses are well documented. He struggles when he goes left, and he can't shoot the outside jumper. I mean, those are two things that he has to work on. Now, me personally, I kind of like MCW just because I like the fact that he takes ownership of the things that he can't do well.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to work hard and improve that. And let's face it, if they go out there and get, let's say if they get an Andrew Wiggins or they get someone else, Michael Carter-Williams becomes the third option on the team.
Yeah.
And with that being said, what they're going to say to him is, hey, Mo Cheeks was an NBA All-Star, and what he did is he distributed the rock.
Yeah.
Dr. J and Moses Malone.
Fits his benefits more.
Your job is to distribute the rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Nerlens Noel is coming off that ACL tear that you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. That occurred midway through February, and although he did have that injury, he was projected to be one of the top picks in the NBA draft. He slips in number 6 in large part to that major knee injury. He's an excellent shot blocker and rebounder, one of the best in those categories the college level has ever seen, but he is very raw on the offensive side of the floor. Brett Brown spoke highly of Nerlens Noel during that media day, looks forward to coaching him to be the best that he can be. What can we expect to see from Nerlens Noel, and when's he going to be on the floor?
I'll answer the second question first.
Mm-hmm.
No one really knows when he's going to be on the floor. I spent some time down in Alabama a couple weeks ago, and he at that particular time he had yet to do any real strenuous like on-court activity other than shooting jumpers. And then basically when you go into practice, you see him on the sideline with warm-up stuff on. So he's really not doing anything now. So I think they're giving December as a deadline. I don't think so. Now, again, if it's like February when he's able to come back, I think you should just shut it down completely.
I agree.
And just wait till next year. Now, as far as the role that he'll bring, the thing is, he has to work on his offensive skills, but it was one of those things by talking to him, it was something that he never really did because he's hard on himself. And if he misses a shot, he thinks he's letting the team down.
Uh-huh.
So instead of shooting, he always has the ball. But the thing I like about Nerlens, and the thing that I think the Sixers really love about him, is he does the intangible things. I mean, here's a guy who's 6'11". We all know about his shot blocking, but he can run the floor. He's a great passer, and he's a great teammate.
Uh-huh.
If you get someone in here who can be a bona fide scorer, to whereas Nerlens Noel can just excel in the things that he does, I mean, he'll be a success story in Philadelphia for a long time.
Now, do you think he projects more to be a 4 or a 5? Because he is 6'11", that weight is a little bit of an issue, but he's got bunnies. He can jump out of the roof, block a lot of shots. But is he a 4 or 5 in your opinion?
I think he's a 5.
Okay.
I think, the thing is, we got to realize the guy's 19 years old. And if you took around and you look at some of these other guys when they came up, like, for instance, a Bill Russell, I know you're way too young to know about him, but he didn't carry a lot of weight on him. And we're thinking he's 19, so by the time he's like 22, 23, he'll bulk up a little bit. I mean, he gained 15 pounds. Now, the thing is, look at Mutombo. Mutombo, he wasn't exactly Shaquille O'Neal.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, we're trying to, I think you shouldn't force someone to play a position that they're not comfortable with just because the masses say that he's undersized.
Yeah, and even Dwight Howard wasn't that big when he was coming out of high school.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm saying it to say is I think, he needs to stay at center, and then they'll fit that weight on him. And I think the people in the NBA who know what they're doing, if they say, like, this guy's to play, then I'm putting faith in him thinking that, knowing that he can play.
Philadelphia 76ers beat writer Keith Pompey joins the main event with Jay Sr. on WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. You had the opportunity to cover Temple for the last couple of years, so obviously around here, people are very high on former Temple star Khalif Wyatt. A really impressive showing in the Orlando Summer League, which led to him being signed to a partially guaranteed contract with his hometown team. He's originally from Norristown. What can you see? What role do you see Khalif filling on this team, and does he actually have a legitimate shot of making this roster because they are a little thin at the 1 and 2 spot?
Yeah, Khalif has a great shot of making this roster. In regards to filling a role, I think that depends on what Khalif wants to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not just saying that because I know him, but just by looking at some of the guys that they have out there, I think Khalif could fill whichever role he wants to. Now, I also believe that this is the perfect team for him because he's a shooter. He's a better ball handler than people outside of Temple give him credit for or know of. So he can be a backup 1 and 2. So he's like a backup combo. And he has been doing that the first day of training camp. He will go in there and back up Evan. He will go in there and back up FCW. But I think the best thing about Khalif is his shooting.
Yeah.
He's the type of guy, he could be like a Jerry Neal type.
That's what Brett Brown compared him to.
Yeah, and the Danny Green. I mean, he's the guy who, you're not going to pay too much attention to him early on. And he's over in that corner. They kick the ball out. He drains a couple threes. The next thing you know, you have to focus on him, and that's opening things up for the inside.
Now, sorry to cut you off there, but his fitness did come into question when he was at Temple. He wasn't in the weight room as much as he could have been. I saw him play at the Delco Pro-Am, and I was amazed to see how much weight he lost and the shape that he was in. How impressed were you with the first time you saw Khalif Wyatt after that game against Indiana and the shape that he was in?
Oh, yeah, I was extremely impressed with him, but also I asked myself, like, dang, Lee, how come you didn't do this sooner?
Yeah.
Like when I saw him playing in the Orlando Summer League. Now, I think the one thing that Khalif has to do, yes, he did lose weight, but he still needs to get his conditioning down a little bit. Now, I'm not saying he has to lose 5 to 10 more pounds, but I think he has to make sure that he gets his heart rate up, gets to do a lot of other things, because in the NBA now, he's not going up against Atlantic 10 or like guys from Kansas who are, don't get me wrong, they're great, but all of them aren't pros. So now he's going to play the two guard position on certain occasions. And the shooting guard in the wings in the league are arguably some of the most athletic guys in the world. So he has to get his conditioning up just so he can stay on the floor.
Right. Now, since being drafted number 2 overall in the 2010 draft, Evan Turner has been criticized in this city for not living up to his expectations. It's hard to do that when you're drafted number 2 overall. He enters the final year of his rookie contract, so it's a big year for him. He's coming off career highs in points, assists, and rebounds, but he's been very inconsistent over the duration of an 82-game season. He figures to handle the ball more in the system that Brett Brown is going to run, which kind of leans towards his strengths, but is this a make-or-break year for Evan Turner?
I think it is. I mean, like the fact of the matter, like you said, he's heading into his final year of the contract. So if he wants to, if he wants to stay and be a part of, what they're trying to build, I mean, he has to show something.
Mm-hmm.
If he wants to go somewhere and demand top dollar, he has to show something. I mean, but I expect Evan Turner to have his best year this season based on two things. One, actually three things. One, everyone's counting him out. And if he's a competitor that I think he is, he's going to come out swinging. Secondly, if you know his history, his first 2 years, wherever he was, whether it was high school or college, he gradually got better. And then there was that one season where the ball was in his hands and he became the man.
Yeah.
Right? And then thirdly, it's just like, everyone is like counting him out.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's saying he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. And I just think that Evan's going to be the guy. And he needs a payday. He's playing for a contract,
Yeah. Keith Pompey, the Philadelphia Inquirer, joins us, and I know you got to run to Sixers practice in just a couple of minutes, so last question here. The expectations for this year are not very high, and a majority of the fan base is mostly rallying for the Sixers to tank, with the 2014 NBA draft expected to be loaded with talent. There isn't a ton of talent and experience on this roster, and still quite a bit of holes to fill. Keith, are we looking at a team that could be in the 20-win range, or do you see the Sixers exceeding that?
I think it's just the 20 wins. I mean, I'm thinking anywhere from 16 to 22.
So it could be that bad, huh?
Yeah, well, it is a young team, and let's face it, in 3 years, only probably 2 to 3 guys on this current roster will be on the team.
Yeah.
It's just a young team. I mean, basically, they got a lot of guys on this roster who are basically trying. They basically have a 1-year tryout.
Mm-hmm.
It's like to see if they're going to make it with the Sixers or if someone else is going to pick them up. It's a young team, man. They're going to take a bunch of losses.
All right, Keith. Well, we thank you so much for joining us. We're a big fan of you, obviously, with your Temple ties. But before we let you head out, tell our listeners where they can find you on Twitter and what you're going to be having coming up in the Philadelphia Inquirer and on your blog on Philly.com.
You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. And, you guys could... I'm going to travel to Spain on Wednesday.
Okay.
So I'll be with the Sixers there. I'll be the only media member from Philadelphia.
How about that?
So if you guys want to get updated stuff from practice, from I'm doing like community service stuff, make sure you follow me on Deep Sixers or Philly.com or on Pompey's on Sixers on Twitter, and I will keep you up to date.
All right, Keith. Great stuff. Thanks for hopping on with us.